Economy Channel, the real economy.
One of the least discussed aspects of the digital revolution is its dependence on minerals. These materials, essential for the manufacture of digital infrastructures and related devices, have caused a revolution in the mining industry. This led to minerals that were once considered of little economic importance to assume a renewed centrality, sometimes becoming the subject of fierce geopolitical competition. One of these materials is cobalt. Until a few years ago considered a byproduct of copper and nickel extraction, it is fast becoming an increasingly strategic material for its use in rechargeable batteries. This makes it an indispensable component for any consumer electronics device. In particular, in recent years, the increasing production of electric cars has led to a further increase in demand for cobalt. The worldwide demand has, in fact, grown from 90,000 to 127,000 tons between 2016 and 2019, with estimates that in 2023 will reach the 185,000 tons. The cobalt used for the production of batteries comes for the most part from the Democratic Republic of Congo, which, it is estimated, is responsible for 60% of the world's mineral production. The Democratic Republic of Congo is a Central African state that covers an area equal to that of Western Europe and hosts about 99 million inhabitants. The mining industry is a key sector of the local economy. In fact, in addition to cobalt, the country is a major producer of more than 1,000 precious materials, including copper, diamonds, tantalum, tin, and gold. Despite the abundant natural resources in Congo have made it a producer of coveted raw materials, the population has benefited very little. The Democratic Republic of Congo remains today one of the poorest countries in the world, repeatedly appearing at the bottom of the rankings of Human Development Index and GDP per capita. This is also due to the violence and authoritarian regimes that characterize the history of the country, from the personal reign of King Leopold II of Belgium, established in 1885, through 30 years of dictatorship under Joseph Mobutu, to the present day, with the dynasty of the Kabila, who reigned until last January when an opposition politician, Félix Tshisekedi, took power in what was celebrated as the first peaceful transition of power in the post-colonial history of the Central African state. The aftermath of this troubled history is still present in the continuing violence in the east of the country. The tensions are a direct consequence of the upheavals of the late 90s, when the Democratic Republic of Congo faced two wars that saw the participation of almost all the states of the region, and in particular of Uganda and Rwanda, leading from 1997 to 2008, to the death of over 5 million people.
Economy Channel.
The mining system in the Democratic Republic of Congo has traditionally been dominated by craft miners, or creuseurs. It is estimated, in fact, that this sector gave, until 2007, sustenance to about 20% of the population, corresponding to 12 million people. In the last decade, however, the creuseurs have lost importance in the mining industry, following the government's decision to entrust more and more concessions to large companies that practice mining at an industrial level. A change of pace was, in particular, after the agreement with China in 2008, that paved the way for the current dominance of the cobalt market by Chinese companies. Despite the decrease in their relative importance, artisanal mining remains a source of livelihood for many locals. In fact, although it is difficult to obtain precise data on their numbers and estimates are very variable, the leading company in the field of raw materials Trafigura Group has estimated that in the province of Katanga alone, there are still 200,000 creuseurs. Gécamines, the state-owned mining company, estimates that craft miners produce up to 30% of the country's cobalt, and that the industry employs 170,000 people in the province of Lualaba alone. The craft sector has increasingly come under scrutiny for the lowest working conditions that characterize it. In addition to the lack of safety standards and suitable equipment, which every year causes hundreds of deaths and injuries as a result of the collapse of the tunnels, many children, forced by the economic situation of their families, find themselves working in this sector. In particular, UNICEF estimated that approximately 40,000 children are employed in the mines of the cobalt-rich southern Katanga. Creuseurs are also regularly exposed to toxic exhalations of the precious mineral which, in the absence of protective equipment, is believed to cause respiratory difficulties and heart problems, but also malformations and miscarriages in pregnant women, who often have to work to support their families. It is only recently that these accusations have begun to be investigated, bringing to court some leading technology companies accused of not applying strict enough controls on their supply chains. One example that caused a stir was the lawsuit filed last December by international rights advocates against Apple, Google, Tesla, Microsoft, Dell and two mining companies. The lawsuit, which is the result of field research conducted by anti-slavery economist Siddharth Kar, accuses the 5 high-tech giants of having accurate information that the cobalt used in their products came from activities at risk of child labor and exploitation, and of having done nothing to prevent it. The mining sites of the 2 mining companies would see children up to 9 years of age work in situations that put them at risk of death or injury. In a specific case, one of the minor plaintiffs would fall into a ditch, thus remaining paralyzed, while carrying materials for 75 cents a day. In some cases, the cobalt excavated under such conditions ends up in the global supply chain through intermediaries, or traders. These traders, who come increasingly from China, buy material from anyone who is ready to sell it, then sell it to the mineral suppliers. These, in turn, supplied the refineries and factories with components. At other times, miners are forced to sell directly to the operator of the mining site where they work, in a monopoly regime and with little state control. The artisanal miners, who are often paid less than $2 a day, have complained that it is impossible to assess the prices they are offered, leaving them prey to scams and exploitation. In fact, the companies that buy the material are the same ones that control the equipment to estimate the prices. In addition, most workers cannot afford an internet access with which to control the price fluctuations of the material. The large Congolese and international companies, which have become increasingly central in the extraction of cobalt, however, also have problems. They often operate in agreement with the government in a regime of almost total freedom, even threatening the safety of human rights activists who go against the economic interests of the large companies in the region. With the abandonment of fossil energy sources, the demand for batteries will continue to increase, and so will that of cobalt. Western society is beginning to take more and more notice of the problem. However, the companies and the Congolese state must take concrete action against the phenomenon of exploitation. Since the first complaints in 2016 on the situation of cobalt mines, little has been done to improve the living conditions of the workers. On the contrary, the big mining companies have aimed to paint themselves as a source of clean cobalt, antithesis to the creuseurs, which have been increasingly excluded from activities, even with violence. Many believe that retaliation against the craft industry will not solve the problem. The Democratic Republic of Congo remains one of the poorest countries in the world, and the lack of other prospects besides the mining industry will continue to push people to dig and die in search of cobalt. The only solution is to improve the working conditions of craft miners and make sure they have more and more access to a competitive and regulated buyer market. The working conditions of creuseurs are simply a reflection of the socio-economic condition of the majority of the population in a poor country, and whose elites continue to rob their fellow citizens of a future.